Look at the massive scale of this operation. When you are maneuvering glowing vats of molten metal or suspending thousands of pounds of steel in the air, the physical forces at play are staggering. In environments like this, the margin for error is exactly zero. A single snapped cable, a failing hydraulic valve, or a momentary lapse in judgment results in catastrophic, often fatal accidents. For decades, Indonesian heavy industry operated under safety frameworks drafted in 1985 and 2010. But as industrial machinery grew larger, faster, and far more complex, those older rules struggled to keep pace with the evolving physical hazards. To close that gap, the government introduced a strict new standard. This document is Permenaker Nomor 8 Tahun 2020, and it is closely aligned with international engineering codes like the ASME series. This regulation functions as a three-layered defensive system, using specific technical mandates to engineer workplace accidents out of existence. The first layer of defense starts with the hardware itself. Looking at these massive yellow overhead bridge cranes, the law dictates exactly how they must be constructed and equipped. Manufacturers are legally required to install alat pengaman, or safety devices. These are built-in sensors and limiters that monitor the load. If a crane tries to lift more than its rated capacity, these mechanisms automatically kill the operation before the steel can buckle. Then there are alat perlindungan, the physical protective shields. These barriers are specifically designed to block workers from accidentally stepping into the path of moving gears, belts, or hydraulic presses. The regulation draws a hard line here. It is strictly illegal for anyone to alter, bypass, or remove these protective shields while the machine is running. By forcing the machinery to monitor its own limits, this first pillar ensures the equipment defaults to protecting the worker, even if human error tries to push the hardware too far. But engineering a safe machine is only half the equation. In untrained hands, even an everyday forklift becomes a lethal weapon. This brings us to the operational rules. Sections 53 and 54 of the text state that an operator must sound a warning and guarantee a minimum 90-centimeter free space along the machine's path before a single wheel turns. The law also enforces an absolute ban on suspending active loads over areas where personnel are actively working. The risk of mechanical failure is never permitted to hang directly above human lives. To enforce this, Article 171 introduces a strict licensing mandate. Anyone sitting in the cab, rigging the cables, or maintaining the engine must hold a legally recognized K3 safety license. This creates a rigid chain of accountability. Any breach in operational protocol results in the immediate loss of the worker's legal standing to operate heavy equipment. So we have safe machines and licensed operators. But how do we objectively prove the metal will hold and the human will react correctly before a disaster actually strikes? The answer is mandatory, scheduled inspections. The government authorizes accredited independent bodies, like TÜV Nord, to act as the final objective judges of workplace safety. Professional inspectors move from administrative audits to high-precision hardware scans. They employ non-destructive testing to detect microfractures in the steel that are invisible to the naked eye. Then comes the physical stress test. This table shows the dynamic load testing protocol. Inspectors force the machine to perform its daily routines while bearing escalating weights, jumping from 25% all the way to 100% of its maximum safe working load. The most extreme verification happens here. Article 176 outlines the static load testing requirements. Inspectors intentionally overload the machine, pushing it to 110, 125, or even 150% of its stated capacity to definitively prove its structural integrity. By legally mandating these extreme physical stress tests, the framework ensures that if a crane or forklift is ever pushed to its absolute limit on a crowded factory floor, the equipment will hold and the workers will survive. This document, signed by the Minister of Manpower, carries severe sanctions for any employer who fails to implement these standards. Ignoring these three pillars is a direct violation of federal law. It's easy to look at a regulation this dense and see only bureaucratic red tape. But this text is actually a calculated engineering framework designed exclusively to isolate and eliminate physical danger. The regulation operates on the principle that safety is the primary driver of uptime. When hardware is verified and operators are licensed, the unpredictable delays caused by accidents and mechanical failure disappear, transforming safety compliance into a baseline for consistent industrial output. When an industrial worker clocks out, walks away from the heavy machinery, and safely returns home to their family at the end of a shift, it isn't a matter of luck. It is a guarantee built by design.